In the Greater Essex County District School Board, learning partners collaborate to enhance literacy learning. The school board has demonstrated a long-term commitment to peer coaching by providing the time and resources needed for effective collaboration to occur in schools on a daily basis. To enhance student achievement and understanding, secondary school teachers at Bell River District High School, W.F. Herman Secondary School, and Walkerville Collegiate Institute implemented the same instructional strategies in their classrooms across every subject area. Focusing on just a few key strategies helped to increase understanding of how the strategies could be used to facilitate performance and improve the degree of implementation. Research shows that only deep implementation has desired effects on student achievement. Some of the strategies included summarizing and structured note-taking, think-alouds, anticipatory activities, and graphic organizers. With the help of a learning partner, both new and experienced teachers adapted the strategies to address the needs of their students and uniqueness of their disciplines. This allowed for the differentiation of instruction based on the readiness of both students and teachers. Contained in this video is footage of secondary school teachers working together to plan instruction, deliver lessons, and assess effectiveness. Through viewing the videos, you will become familiar with the strategies. We encourage you to consider how you might use them in your own practice. You are also asked to consider how collaboration supports professional learning when embedded in daily practice. In this segment, you will see a learning partner collaborating with a new teacher as they co-plan, team teach, and debrief. Their focus is incorporating structured note-taking and summarizing into a science lesson by modeling the process using a teacher-prepared note. While viewing this segment of the video, please consider the following. How are these teachers explicit in their instruction? What are the critical attributes of an effective learning partnership?
So what were you planning on doing this afternoon when we teach?
We have to introduce the symbols and we have to introduce series and parallel circuits.
How would you be introducing that?
I have a note that I would put on the overhead and we just sort of discuss as we go through the note, the different important points about each of them.
Okay, good. So the last time when we worked together, we went over the general outline and we did just one very basic note on Cornell Notes. I think at this time that I'm not sure if they're ready to do one on their own. We're just starting out, so I think it's really important for us to model the Cornell Note. So I have these black line masters we can use with them. So when you're doing the note, you said you wanted to go through and give examples and explain things as you go. Are you going to be going line by line or showing the whole thing?
Nope, I'll be going line by line.
Okay.
And maybe actually get them to, I'm sure they've heard the term series and parallel before, so get them to sort of guess maybe what they mean beforehand so they're thinking about it.
Good, again you're activating that prior knowledge. So what I'll do is I'll have a chart paper with the Cornell Note outline on it.
Okay.
And so of course you'll be the subject expert when you go through that. And what I'll do is I'll model how to write out the Cornell Note. And as I do it, I'll do the think aloud. I'll let them hear the process that I go through because it's important for them to hear that. That's good. Okay. So I'll meet you at the beginning of class.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thanks.
So we're going to learn about series and parallel circuits today.
We're going to use a structured note-taking style, and the particular structure that we're going to use is the Cornell Note. Remember we talked about how with the Cornell Note you have your keywords in your left-hand column and you add the details in the right-hand column, and at the bottom of the Cornell Note you write the summary. What I have here is a black line master. I have some without lines and some with lines. For science class especially, I kind of like the ones without lines because lots of times we add diagrams. So what I'm going to do is we're going to hand them out and you can select whichever one you want to use. So Miss Greco is going to go through the note as she normally does. I will write my version of the Cornell note over here, and as I do it, I'm going to let you know what I'm thinking at the same time. So you are going to be able to hear me think as I'm writing this out, so I'll be making decisions on what to include or not to include. Just as a regular note, you put the title at the top. Series and parallel circuits.
So the first type of circuit we will be talking about are series circuits.
I know that this is a keyword, so I don't even have to think twice about that. Series goes in the keywords.
So the current remains the same regardless of the point in the circuit.
Oh, I like the way she said it there rather than the way it was written on there. So she said the current remains the same regardless of where it is. So I think I'll just write it the way she said it because I like that better. Remember what Miss said. She said voltage is the power. Is that what you said, Miss? Mm-hmm. Voltage is the power? So I want to remember that. So I'm going to put equals power because I think that that was pretty important and it helped clarify, explain what that was. And I think that was the same as series. So I'm going to write that down. That's the same as series because I want to remember that that's point is true for both. Okay. So now we're at the part of a Cornell note where it's the summary. The note is finished. We have all our details here. And this is where we have to stop and think, what is the big picture? What is the take-home message?
At this point, the coach models how to summarize all of the information that has been extracted from the teacher's note. Many students struggle with this skill and require explicit instruction before they are able to use the strategy independently.
So that is the outline of a Cornell note. And we talked before about how just copying the note is easy because you don't have to think during the copying of the note. But you heard as we were going through writing it as a Cornell note that there's lots of thinking involved. This will help me, this will help you remember the material a lot longer. In general, how do you think that the lesson went today?
I think it went well. It was a very simple concept, but I think they really understood the differences between the two.
Okay,
circuits.
so the actual content of the note you felt was very simple, but they understood that.
Yes.
Okay. Compared to traditionally putting your overhead on, compared to doing a Cornell note, what are your impressions right now about the usefulness of it?
Well, we have discussions a lot with the students about Cornell notes, and some of them continuously say, Miss, I don't want to do it, it's just too much work, I have to think while I'm doing it, versus just copying a note off of the overhead. They can easily blindly, look up, copy down, and then look at it later maybe when they study. Versus with the Cornell note, they have to actually think about what they're writing down, why they're writing it down, and then the summary at the end sort of summarizes everything that they've learned, but in their own words. So it just sort of proves that they are learning from it versus standard note-taking.
As I was doing the Cornell note, you noticed that I was doing the think aloud. What do you think about that?
Oh, that is neat because you're sort of demonstrating what a student might be thinking as they're writing the note. So they sort of got to look inside your brain as you were talking, and if they think maybe they're being silly as they're writing and they're looking at your thought process and they realize, no, that's sort of how I'm thinking about it as well. And it models for them how they can decipher what's important and what's not.
Take a few minutes to pause and ponder. How were these teachers explicit in their instruction? What are the critical attributes of an effective learning partnership? Teachers continue to scaffold students' learning by involving the student in making decisions about the least and most important information to include in their notes. Teachers recognize that many students are not ready to make these decisions on their own, so the class does it together. This strategy implementation continuum, included as an appendix in the Facilitator's Guide, shows how teachers can scaffold students' learning using a gradual release of responsibility. While viewing this segment of the video, please consider the following. How does making a Cornell note differ from rote note-taking? How does the learning partner prompt the teacher for information and next steps?
We've been working on Cornell notes and we've been modeling it. How do you think it's going so far?
I think it's good. I think they're getting a handle of it. I think when we're modeling it, they're following it exactly, so it's going good.
Okay. Do you think we're ready to move on to the next step of gradual release?
Yes.
Okay. The next step would be us working together with the students, so we'll be getting input from them. What topic are you looking at tomorrow?
We've just started space, so I think the best thing to do would just start talking about the planets.
Okay.
So right here sort of introduces the inner and outer planets, and we can kind of do a general overview with them on that.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be using the textbook to make our Cornell notes.
Yep.
Will you be doing the read aloud during the note?
Yes, I will be reading it and then giving them a chance to sort of digest that and then give me their input as to what they think is important in the paragraph.
Okay. For the summary section, I have some rules that might help us when we create the summary together.
Okay.
So they're just 4 rules that we can use on things to follow when you're summarizing. So don't include unnecessary details, don't include redundant material, substitute a superordinate, and select a topic sentence. Are you okay with these rules?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think it'll just reinforce for them, you know, what a summary is in case they still don't quite get it. So I think that'll be good.
It is something that students often struggle with. So we'll have the note on the chart paper and we'll put this on the overhead and then we can do that together.
At this stage, the learning partner and teacher shift some of the responsibility for note-taking and summarizing to the students by prompting them for responses. By guiding students through this process, the teachers are providing the scaffolds necessary for students to become more independent. The summary statements required at the end of the Cornell note forces students to process information a 3rd time, which will help to increase retention of the information presented.
Writing the summary, being able to summarize, makes you really focus on what's the important part of the note, and it also helps you remember the content.
Studies show that students are more likely to adopt strategies if during instruction, teachers explain how the strategy will benefit them as learners.
So, how do you think that went today?
Yeah, I think they got the message that we were trying to deliver, and we repeated it 3 or 4 times in different formats, so I think they got the message.
And I think they appreciate having that input today, participating in making the note as opposed to just watching it.
Yeah.
The teachers modeled and the class did it together, but before expecting students to be able to take notes and summarize information independently, teachers plan opportunities for students to work in pairs. Students retain information longer and learn more when they work together.
You told the students we're going to look at the specific planets tomorrow?
Yeah, so tomorrow what I want them to do is look at each individual planet that makes up the inner and the outer planet, sort of that category, and sort of summarize the information about each planet.
Okay.
I think we talked about maybe having them work in pairs to do that.
Yes. So you think you're ready to go on to the next step?
I think that would be good. I think they, now we've together worked on a Cornell note, now I think they can actually do that in pairs.
Okay. Because they are working in pairs, are you comfortable with the fact that students are not all going to have the same note?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay, good. What would you like me to do for tomorrow?
Just at the end, maybe we can have individual groups maybe summarize a specific planet. And
at the end, you want to summarize together as a class or to get input from them so people can hear from each other?
Yeah, I think getting input from them and at the same time summarizing as a class. So
that sounds good. So we're ready. All right.
And what I think we'll do first is do Mercury together. So look at the information about Mercury together, model it for you, and then give you a chance to work in partners to do that work together. So what do you think out of that first bullet is important, really important, something that you think you may be asked to remember about Mercury? Hugh? It says giving daytime temperatures over 400 degrees, so you are inferring based on the 2 temperatures that it's cold at night and hot during the day. Good. Are there any questions before you start?
Teachers pair students with purpose, aware of individuals' strengths and needs. In addition to providing opportunities for students to work together, teachers provide photocopies of the text so that students can highlight important information prior to writing it down.
How do you think yesterday went with the students when they worked in pairs on making their own notes?
I like the fact that we gave them, we did a photocopy of the note so they had it in front of them. So they each were able to use their own note, and then the fact that they could highlight right on the page. I think the more and more you introduce it and you keep having them try it out, the more comfortable they're becoming with it.
Take a few minutes to pause and ponder. How does making a Cornell note differ from rote note-taking? How did the learning partner prompt the teacher for information and next steps? Since appropriate scaffolds have been provided along the way, most students are now ready to work independently. However, teachers provide ongoing support to ensure that everyone meets success. While viewing this segment of the video, please consider the following. How do teachers continue to scaffold student learning? What role does the learning partner play in strategy instruction?
When we were having the students voluntarily read their summary out loud, I noticed that one specific student, when he volunteered his answer, had some misinformation in his summary. We need to make sure that we can address that.
Okay.
So tomorrow, the final stage of the gradual release, one thing I was thinking is that we could use a pass-it-on strategy for the summary. Have you used that before?
No, I haven't.
I really like it for science classes. And that is when students write their summary and they're done with it, they pass it on to the person beside them, and then they read for content, and they can either add or delete things as needed. And then they pass it on again and again, as many times as you want.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. What we might want to do is go through and create some of the keywords. So let's go. Would you want to do that right now?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, let's go through. Okay, so then tomorrow we'll give them the Cornell note with the keywords on it.
Okay.
So that they can focus on that? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
To start the class, what would you like to start the class with?
Maybe, so I know all of them probably have a general knowledge of what space is or what's in space, but I think maybe having them do a rapid write of other objects they might think are in the solar system, just to get an idea of what they're thinking already before we even start and tell them the other objects.
Okay, so we'll start with the rapid write, and then they'll do their independent Cornell note tomorrow?
Yeah.
And then we'll end with a pass it on for summary?
Sounds
good. Great.
Okay.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. And what we're going to do today is we're going to have you write a Cornell note based on some of the key terms on those few pages.
Students create their notes independently using a template that includes key terms provided by the teacher. Summarizing and note-taking are two of the most powerful study skills a student can cultivate. It is important for teachers to help foster these skills.
You've pretty much captured all of the important information, and even if you have a little bit more, that's okay.
Some of you may have written a little bit more, some of you may have written a little bit less, and this is something that takes a lot of practice, is identifying what's important. What you did today is so much better than just copying out notes. By actively creating your note today, you will remember this note and the information in it. So now the part that we didn't look at yet is the summary, and that really takes a lot of practice, is reading all of this information